Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'll be working on my avatar grove, which is made up of Eastern White Cedars. The last work I did to this forest was just before our club show in fall of last year. So it's getting quite bushy now and needs pruning. The overall profile of the forest is starting to lose that kind of triangular shape. The triangle kind of leads your eye into the main tree. If you have it all kind of a jumble profile or more rectangular, it doesn't really lead your eye anywhere, and the overall silhouette isn't very pleasing. You can see in this view that these trees need to be pruned back, and the ones on this side also. It looks kind of more of a rectangular form with a big tree sticking up in the middle. To create perspective in this forest, I have my taller trees in the front and the smaller trees at the back. The trees in the front will also have their lowest branches higher up, and the trees in the back, the lowest branches will be more towards the ground. So that'll give that forest perspective. So the trees in the front will look like they're close to the viewer, and the trees in the background will look like they're further away. I also don't want the trees crowding the edge of the pot. I want the lip of the pot to be seen, and these trees brought in more, so it doesn't give you that square line at the edge of the pot. And same over here. You can see the edge of the pot is here, and I want these trees to taper in more so it's not this, straight vertical line here. I'm going to start today by doing the profile pruning to the overall shape of the forest first, and then I'll go in and do the detailed pruning to all the trees. This coming up in the Bonsai Zone. My avatar grove has undergone some pretty dramatic changes in the last 4 or 5 years. So we'll go take a look back now at how the forest began and how it's developed over the years. What we're going to do today is I'm going to take my Eastern White Cedar and my little ones that I've collected over the years, and we're going to make a forest planting of them. So this is going to be the tallest tree in the forest. It looks like an old western red cedar that you'd find out in British Columbia. And the rest of the little cedars I have are going to be smaller trees in the forest. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to trim the roots on the bottom of the tree. We want all these radial roots thickening the tree trunk up, and we don't want these roots on the bottom growing straight down. Yeah, I think that'll do as a planting of our first tree. Before we start planting our next trees, we're going to give the main tree a water, make sure the roots stay moist while we're working on the other trees. So I'll give you a shot of the trees I have to choose from now. So these are all my little cedars I've collected in the last couple of years. The ones in the plastic bags are the ones that I collected on our collection trip this year. I just didn't get time to put them in training pots or anything, so they're going to go straight into the forest. I'm going to take that whole top off there. We'll take it back there. There, that gives this tree light. Turn off some of these dead branches. I'm kind of styling this forest to resemble an old grove forest from British Columbia. So eventually all the trees are going to grow taller, and it'll start looking more like a old growth forest someday. So we'll keep working on it, and the next video will be probably doing some more pruning, and we're going to start on the landscaping. Probably put some pathways through there and that kind of thing. Have you ever seen a picture that kind of captures your imagination? I saw a picture of the avatar grove, and it showed all the trees on quite a slope of the hillside or mountainside, and I really like that look of all the tree trunks staggered as you go up the hill, and it's kind of haunted me, and I want to recreate that with my avatar grove. So to get all these cedar trees to look like they're on the side of a mountain. So you can see the kind of sloped effect we're after. All our trees are tilted, but we're going to try and straighten those out. So looking at it from the front now, the slope isn't as high as I hoped I could get, but I can make it a little higher than that, but not a whole lot. I think I'm getting quite steep at the back. I'll show you the back later on. I'll bring the camera around the back so you can see what I'm doing. So you can see my steep wall at the back. That's about as steep as I dare go. One of the things I like about this planting is it really lets your eye explore all the different places in the planting. So it's a fairly complex terrain that you can only take in little bits at a time. So as you get closer to this forest, it just makes you want to explore more and look at all the little hills and what's behind those. And it's Nigel Saunders of KW Bonsai. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video. Today I'm going to be repotting my cedar avatar grove into a mica bonsai pot. This is very exciting. And up, it's like that. And it fits actually quite nicely in this new pot. I'll fill the edges in now with fresh bonsai soil. Kind of tapering it down from the existing soil line down to the edge of the pot like that. So here it is. This is the front. You can see the edges. How I had a fair amount of room there. And on this side, about the same amount, a little more on this side, but I'll go around the back also. So here I am around the back of the forest. You can see the steep hill. So I can probably build that up with a bit more muck or something so it holds the hill in place better so it doesn't crumble away. So yeah, there's room for improvement at the back. If you see in my larch forest near the back, I've got 2 moss bushes. I've had those little clumps of moss growing at the back of my larch planting for over 4 years. When I repot them, I dig them up and transplant them. So that's something we'll be adding to this cedar planting for sure, is some nice shade moss like that. And I'll slowly work it over the years to shape it into like a small bush. My larch forest will be getting the same treatment that the cedar forest did. It'll be going into a large bonsai mica pot, the same size as the other one, but a slightly different color. It'll be a darker pot, so closer to a black color. Again, big changes to the avatar grove today. I do have a lot of little cedar seedlings that I planted this year. So next spring I hope to transfer some of them to this forest. So I have a good variety of sizes. I'll have little tiny seedlings. I'll have the sort of small saplings here, and then I'll have the big tree in the middle. So there'll be a good variety of sized trees. I'm going to put down some sand in the pathways next. So just, a light sprinkling. That's all the work I'll be doing on the avatar grove. I think it's in pretty good shape for the show. I'll do some minor adjustments before the show, cleaning the trunks, cleaning up the moss, and just, refining it more. I'll begin the work now on the profile of the forest. So here I go. I find it's best to do a combination of scissor pruning and pinching of the tips to get a nice looking profile to your branch structure. I'll begin with the scissor pruning, getting the branches reduced back, always leaving some nice healthy green growth on the branches. If you remove all the green foliage off the branch, it'll probably die back. Many of the trees in this forest start off as very small trees, almost seedlings, and as the top grows taller, it allows me to reduce the branches on the bottom so you can see in towards the back of the planting. So this branch down here, I can remove because there's enough foliage up top now. I could even remove this branch up front here, and I think I will. like that. Get rid of that. And the one back here. There's also a branch at the back here I can take off. And one here. So I've raised the lowest branch right up to here now. There's a shot now that shows the length of the trunk before the first branch. So now you can see in more clearly towards the back hill here. And there's still lots of foliage up top here to support the tree and keep it nice and healthy. When I first got these small trees, they were very twisty and curvy, but now they're starting to straighten up, and I hope that continues in the future, that I get a nice straight tall trunk on them to look like an old growth forest. I need to do the same thing for this tree now, removing those lower branches so you can see back in the planting. So here I go. I can leave stumps of the branches if I want to look like old branches that have died off, but if you do that, it maybe doesn't give the illusion of old growth so much. It kind of maybe looks like a younger forest. I don't know. There's some major branches coming off. So there's some good healthy growth up here, so I'll probably take all these lower branches off to about this height. So I'm going to start with this one. Like that. And this is a process that you have to do gradually as the trees grow. Like I said, they were all very young trees when I first planted them. So as they grow taller, I can remove these lower branches. It's much better. I think I can remove a few more. I think it's still, too short a trunk on it before the branches start. So I'm going to remove this one. I may do some final adjustments to the height of the lowest branches as the forest progresses today. I'm going to go over to the right side now and have a look at that. I'm over at the right hand side now, and I want to do the same, reducing these lower branches so I can look back further into the forest. Okay, so here I go. So this tree isn't very tall at the front yet. It does have some nice green growth up top here. So I think I can safely remove some of these lower branches. Maybe not all of them, but probably quite a few. There's some major thick ones coming off to the side here I can remove. These were leftovers from the trees, how they originally grew. They're kind of all twisty and had a lot of branches. There's another major branch I can remove here. Like that. One here. This tree was really twisty when I first got it, and now it's slowly starting to straighten out. It'll make a old growth tree someday. I do want to keep one tall leader here, either this one or that one, to grow even higher. I'll just pinch the tip on this one a bit. That should do. Now, I'm going to get rid of some of these lower branches here also, just the remains. Just because I eventually want a nice, smooth, almost straight trunk someday. We'll see if it gets there, but... Okay, so the next tree is this one out front. I can take some of those lower branches off also. Raising the canopy. It's looking much better. It does show the curvy trunks off more, but I'm hoping those straighten out in the future. My plan for the main tree is to eventually design it to be a cathedral type top, where maybe the top got hit by lightning and died, and all these side branches take over. So it creates a structure like this, sort of a crown or the spires of a cathedral reaching up to the sky. So it kind of creates, there's no central leader on the tree. The side branches take over and become almost mini trees growing around the center trunk. I'll show you a photo of what I mean of that style. I may start working towards that style today, but I won't be, killing off the top at this point in time. On the right-hand side of the forest here, I've got this tree here, and it's got these beautiful branches that reach out towards this direction. However, it doesn't look much like an old-growth tree with those branches coming out like that. So, even though I really like them, and if this tree was maybe by itself, it would look beautiful, they have to come off. An old growth tree has a nice tall straight vertical trunks. So as much as I like these branches, they have to go. It'll also give me some room on this side of the planting. As I said, I don't like the way the branches come down to the lip of the pot. It kind of creates a square line here. Without these branches, you'd have more of a triangular lead in to the forest. I hate to remove these branches, they're so nice, but I'm keeping my overall goal for this forest in mind, and that's to create an old growth forest. So I want to work towards that goal, and I can't fall in love with these branches, I just have to remove them. So here I go. Just like that. And there's another one here that has to go. Like that. And there's also another one coming out the front here that has to go. And this is really going to change the look of this tree. Like that. That's what I'm left with. There's a look at the forest from the front now, and it's made quite a difference. It's opened up this area and kind of gives your eye a lead in, so you don't have that straight line from the edge of the pot to the first tree here. I have the same problem on this side of the forest. I've got to remove some of these branches that are creating that straight line up from the lip of the pot to bring that in further. I'll rotate the forest around so you can see these branches more clearly. Here's the area that's the problem. Hope you can see that. I've got a lower branch that comes out horizontal here. That's quite low down. I do want my trees at the back to have lower back branches, but this is just too low. So that's got to come off. So there I go. Like that. And there's another kind of a trunk line here coming forward. It's actually it's a very twisty tree, this one. I'll see if I can get a close-up of it. I'll rotate it around to the back here. So there's a shot of those branches. And you can see this tree has kind of a double trunk here and branches that twist all over the place. It's not a straight kind of old growth looking tree. So I may have to do some fairly serious work to get it kind of down to maybe a single or double trunk. There's a kind of branch that's growing up as a trunk, a skinny one here. I'll remove that for starters. Where did it go? Right here. There's that branch. I can reduce this one back for starters, like that. Just bring it in further. I can do the same for these, reducing these branches back. So now I've got kind of 3 trunk lines. I think I'll have to look from the front and see exactly what I want to remove. So I'll rotate the tree back around now. I don't know, it's just such a bizarre looking tree. I think I'll just keep that natural structure of the tree. It looks quite good. It's just a little bizarre, but it looks like something that would happen in nature. I think it'll give it quite a naturalistic looking appearance to the forest. You know, so that it won't be all absolutely straight trunks. It'll have sort of some unusual trees that stand out a bit. I will prune the branches back though on all these trees to get them in check. That's a bit better. You can see in here now, which is kind of nice. I'm going to go in now and reduce the canopies on the trees so all these branches aren't shading out the trees beside them, to try and keep all these, trees nice and compact so they each have their own space in the sun. So I'll just come in and I'll do my scissor pruning first, reducing the branches back, and then I can pinch the tips. And I'll show you a close-up of how I do that. Here's a typical long branch. So I come in, I'll do it on this one. So I'll come in and cut the tip off like that, and then I can come in what's left and just pinch it to a rounded profile like that. Here's another branch. I'll just move the tip off and then pinch it to a rounded profile. Another branch, prune the tip of that one, tip of that one, tip of this one, and then you can come in and pinch them out to a nice rounded profile. And it keeps your foliage nice and tidy and dense. There's another one. Take the tip off and pinch. Another one. And these trees will back bud. Pinch the tip off here. So you can see I've reduced the foliage in this area down so it's nice and tight and compact. And just keep doing that over the years and you get a nice compact tree that looks really miniature. I'll keep working away pruning the forest back, and then we'll come back and see how it looks. I've been working away thinning these trees on the left hand side, and I noticed one thing that's really been bothering me for the last couple of years is this deadwood on the main tree here. It kind of points horizontal or slightly downhill. If it was deadwood pointing upright, I would like it more like the cathedral style, but it stands out as something looking odd to me, so I'm going to remove it. I want to do this before I forget about it, so here I go. I'm going to make a flush cut, or try to. Here I go. Like that. That's actually a pretty good cut. Just clean it up a little bit. There we go. There's what it looks like now with that dead branch removed. I'm making good progress on the trees, at least on the left-hand side here, but it is starting to rain. So, I don't know if you can see it, but the trees are opening up, so there's space between all the trees. And they're getting tall and slender, like a tree you'd see in a forest. Kind of losing that bushy hedge type feel to it, looking more tree-like. I still have a long way to go, but hopefully the rain will stop soon and I can get back out here. The rain has stopped, so it's time to get back to work on the trees. I'm going to start working on the right-hand side over here now, getting those, reduced down to a small triangular form. So from above you can see each tree will have its own space. I do want to keep the lowest branches on these trees at the back of the planting a little lower to the ground than the ones at the front, but I still have to raise them. They're too close to the ground. I want every tree to look like, a forest tree, and usually they have the lower half of the trunk quite bare and then all the greenery is up top here. It's very sparse because each tree has to have its own space. So I'm going to have to remove some of these lower branches on some of these trees like this one here. Here I go. And there's another one here. That one's gone. And there's another one here. These trees have to look like forest trees. They can't look like a tree growing in the open. So that's why I have to get rid of all these branches. I'm also removing, a lot of these have, you know, one single trunk at the bottom and then it divides into almost a crown. And I don't want that on these younger trees. I just want one trunk line. So I'll be removing some of these side branches, like that one back here. There's one here I can remove from the back, like that. That really opens up the forest floor here too. So I'm just working away at these trees, making them as compact as possible, because they will grow again for the growing season. So I've got to reduce them back. Otherwise they'll just fill in and interfere with each other. You can see the unpruned trees take up a lot of space when viewed from above. So I've got to reduce that all down. Here's another tree that's getting kind of shaded out by this one. So I'm reducing all these shoots back. Make them nice and tight. Sounds like a train's coming by. Here I've got kind of two apexes on this tree, so I'm going to pick one and remove the other. Just like that. As you're cleaning out these branches, you know, the more you clean them out, the more you can see the details of them. And you can go in and further refine them as you're working away. You know, trying to get them pushed back as tight as you can. It's very easy to grow these trees out larger, but keeping them small is that's the trick. You want all the branches at the apex to be very tight, because you do want that sort of triangle silhouette. This tree right here is one of my more twisty trees. It kind of starts out and kind of curls around, and then I've got all these branches coming out here, but it does eventually straighten out to become a tall tree. So I think I've got to remove all these lower branches, and it'll always have that kind of twisty lower part to the trunk, but slowly over the years as it thickens up, it'll straighten out somewhat. So I'll remove all these kind of thick branches, lower branches off it. There are trees in nature that start off quite twisty and then they straighten up as they hit the light. Sometimes in a forest you get a twisty tree in the understory, and then as another tree falls down beside it, it suddenly gets light and it just shoots straight up. So I guess that's what this tree is kind of like. It's a tree that's kind of grown crooked for this first part of its life, and then it suddenly got the light and shot up. So I'm taking off all these lower branches. So that's really opened up the trunk line on this tree now. I can still reduce it back. I can prune this branch off here because I have some nice green scale-like foliage here. I've got a upright branch here I can take off like that. So that's getting pretty tight and compact now. Looks much better. There's a look at the planting now, and I think you can see how much space is opened up around the forest floor, and the trees are looking taller and more like a forest tree. For this tree, the apex is here, and there's been a strong back branch grow up, and actually it's quite a bit higher than the apex of the tree, so that has to be cut back. In fact, I'm going to remove that entire shoot. It was one that just shot up like a rocket. There it goes. So this is the apex here. So that should take over this year and grow strongly. I've still got lots of pruning to go, but while I think of it, I never did plant moss on the back of the hill here. So I'll turn the planting around and do that. I've got two kinds of moss in this planting. I've got this fine green velvety type moss, and then I've got a coarser moss that looks almost like miniature ferns. And this is the moss that I make those moss bushes out of. It seems to respond really well to pruning and shaping, and just keeps kind of building on itself. So I think I'll plant that type of moss at the back of the planting. So I'll turn it around now. And there's the back side. You can see these are the new seedlings I planted, and they're doing very well back here. So every time I get a little cedar, there's another one here, another one there. Every time I get a little cedar seedling, I'll put it in at the back here, kind of grow another row of small trees and give another element of perspective to the planting. I keep my moss on top of the table here and on top of the aquarium down here, and I just water it a couple of times a day, and it seems to do really well. So this is that kind of coarse shade moss right here. So that's what I'll plant at the back. Okay, here I go with the moss. So I'm just going to try and kind of bring it around the tree trunk here, because I need to hold it in place. It's not going to just stick all by itself, I don't think. Maybe it will, I don't know. The moss certainly is wet from the rain, I can tell you that. It got a good soaking today. So that seems to be working quite well. It's staying on the soil. That'll also help hold this soil hill in place at the back here, so it doesn't erode. I think all the cedar roots are starting to hold it in place now. I can see a lot of cedar roots on the surface of the soil, so I imagine as this planting gets a little older, that hill will just become full of roots, and the hill will never crumble. It'll be solid then. Okay, so that's nicely planted, that patch. I'll get some more. All right, so I've got to watch my new little cedars here, and I think I've got 3 in the back row here. So I'll put some moss up higher here. Watch out, little cedars. Now this moss, I had a lot of moss up on the hill here, but I was having a few problems with birds last year. They come in and they think there's worms in this soil, and they come and dig and kick the moss off. And so these forests, every day you come out, always expect something kicked off and something you'll have to fix. But that's part of a forest, is just there's always some repairs you have to do. So that one's planted nicely. I'll put another patch up here. So these little seedlings are growing really well. They've got new leaves on them, and yeah, I think they'll grow into fairly tall trees someday. I'll put this patch right here. Sometimes you have to break this moss apart a bit to get it to kind of fit the surface. Just make sure it's firmly planted. If it's kind of got air gaps between the soil and the moss, it'll just dry out really quickly. So that's looking pretty good. I've cleared my little cedars there. My Eastern White Cedars or Northern Cedars. Thuja occidentalis is the scientific name. And that's about it, I think. Just a little bit more over here. Now we'll fly in and have a look at the new moss. There There it is. There's a patch of that moss growing up front here. It's really growing well. That'll need pruning soon. So there's the wall of moss back here. There's the new little cedars there growing on the hill. Except for that one, that's a clipping. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. A few there. Yeah. So back to work on the pruning. While I have the forest turned around, I'll continue working on these trees at the back. I don't like this one tree sticking out too far here. It's kind of, I want to straighten it up a bit, so I'm going to try and tuck it in a little more here. I'll have to prune some of these back branches to keep the forest compact from the back. I don't want it all hanging out here. It may be even possible, this trunk kind of has a curve. I may be able to replace the apex with something more vertical here. I think I'll try that. Here's a look at that tree. It comes up nice and straight and then it curves out towards the back of the planting. So you can see the curve of the trunk here. So I want to replace, you know, the leader with something that's closer to being vertical. So there is a shoot right in here. So that would be a pretty drastic cut. I think I'll be safe and leave 2 shoots on, but I'm going to prune off this whole top of the tree here. If I can get in there, I think from the bottom here. So here I go. Big cut coming up. Just like that. I'm making good progress at the back here. All these trees are getting slimmer. I had to remove a few of the lower branches just to give them some, you know, some room in the trunk. I may even take this one off. I don't know. I'll leave it on for now. Yeah, so I'm just, you know, pinching, getting all these overlapping branches reduced so the trees aren't interfering with each other. That's always a goal in forests, is to keep enough room for each tree, and it's always a challenge. Keeping an apex growing tall on each tree. There will be a certain height that I will have to limit them to, and then, you know, slowly the trunks will get thicker over the years. But I do want them, you know, almost as tall as the main tree, kind of surrounding it. Because in an old growth forest, all the trees basically grow the same height. Even, you know, these giant old ones, there's a height limit that, you know, it can get the water and nutrients up to the top of the tree. So even these skinny little trees, they'll grow almost to the same height as these big old trees. Always trying to keep these forest trees under control. If it gets too far out of control, you'll spend a lot of years trying to get them back under control. They'll just get hard to manage. You can't cut them back too drastically or the branches will die. So you've got to manage them slowly and wait for back budding and then reduce them again. And I'm always looking from above, all different directions when you're pruning, because every different view gives you a fresh perspective on the trees and the branches. You see them from different angles and you see new problem areas like this one right here. I found on these Thujas that if you pinch a branch back too hard, it doesn't die. It kind of just stays there dormant, and then a new back bud will come out instead of, you know, growing the original branch. And as that back bud gains energy, then maybe the next year that branch you pruned will die, but then you can, you know, replace it with that new shoot. So yeah, there is a limit to how hard you can prune these branches back. And if you exceed it, you know, the branch will go dormant and possibly die. And that, you know, that point you take them back may vary on the season. Like right now it's spring. So I think these trees have all kinds of vigor and they're just waiting to, you know, shoot out their new growth. So I don't think I'll have a problem with the pruning today. It's the next day now. I had to leave last night because I was planting fruit trees in the orchard with Scouts Canada. So we planted 2 new trees. I'll give you a shot of what the new baby chickens look like, the little silkies.
Can you see there? Hey, can you see?
I have a lot of work still to do on this forest. All I did yesterday was basically get all the trees surrounding the main tree pruned up to make them compact so they're not all overlapping each other, and kind of getting ready for this season's growth so they can fill out again. I have to work on the landscape still, and I have to prune up the main tree. So I think I'll leave that for part 2 of this video, because I think that's going to take quite a while getting everything looking good. So I'll see everyone in part 2. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me today in the Bonsai Zone.